And welcome back to our second annual check-in on the progress of StarCraft 2's development. With me, as always, is Blizzard's own Dustin Browder. How are you doing, sir?
Very good.
All right. I'm going to be honest. I need this game to come out. What do you got for me?
We are working on it.
Is the news good?
And the news is good. We're working on it as hard as we can. It'll be out very, very soon at this point. We're really almost there.
Okay.
It should be in the hands of the consumers soon.
So the beta's been out for 6-8 weeks, something like that. So obviously you guys have pulled a lot of data at this point.
Yeah.
You mentioned in a presentation this morning, like some units have kind of been on the chopping block. Is there anything you're seeing so far from the data and the feedback where you're thinking, like, dude, we got to get rid of that unit, or like totally throw all these abilities out, or moving them up the tech tree? Like, are there changes coming?
There are some changes potentially coming down the road, but we're really focused on trying to make the race matchups as diverse as we possibly can at this point. And so we're not really thinking of cutting any units. There's certainly some units that I think are not as useful as others we might be able to live without, but we're probably not going to do any cuts at this point. We'll probably keep going with the unit mix that we have. If we're desperate to cut something or add something, we will have the courage to do so.
Okay.
But I don't have any information right now that would say this unit is out and this unit is in. So far, what we've got is what we're sticking with.
Cool. Are you seeing anything on a per map or a per unit basis that you consider like an exploit that you don't want in there, or do you feel like, I mean, short of it being an actual bug, I mean, if people can pull it off, do you consider it fair game or what?
If people can pull it off and if it can be blocked, it's fair game.
Okay.
So we see weekly now rushes that we don't think can be blocked, that we don't think are quite fair game. So currently we're seeing on very small maps, like if you start very close to each other in Lost Temple or maybe a Blistering Sands or Steps of War, we're seeing, a Zergling rush enhanced with Queens against Protoss. That's not very practical for the Protoss player to really stop. You get a couple of Queens, some transfusion going on, you got some Zerglings running around. The Protoss have not been able to block their choke, or if they have, they can't hold it because the Queens can actually engage over the choke point and destroy the building. Not something we're excited about, so we're going to do some nerfs to the Queen speed off of creep to make that rush less possible. And that happens probably once a week at this point. We're seeing some kind of rush that's not blockable. We will allow these rushes. The rush is important to us. We want players to know you can lose a game of StarCraft 2 in the first 2 minutes if you're not paying attention. That's part of the gameplay.
If you're not paying attention, you deserve to lose.
You deserve to lose. That's the game. But if you are paying attention, you should be able to defend yourself from every rush out there.
Very cool. So today's focus is single player, and you've mentioned earlier in the presentation that all this multiplayer stuff you guys are doing is totally separate from that. What stage of development does the single player balance reflect at this point?
Well, the multiplayer experience and the single player experience were always going to be different from one another in terms of the upgrades, the research, and the unit mix that was available in the solo play experience. We knew from very early on we were always going to offer more units in solo play than we offer in multi, because the solo play experience can survive that. You can have upgrades that make no sense for multiplayer in the solo player game, and they're awesome in solo, and they would just be terrible in multiplayer. So we knew that was going to be true from very early on. Until very recently, we've kept everything in lockstep. So if you had a Marine, it was exactly the same Marine in both games. And very recently now, as we've gotten closer and closer to ship, we've split off the data between solo and multi. So if we need to make a change to multi, and it would do a lot of damage to solo, we could do that without destroying the solo play experience. But if the changes are fairly extreme, we're also going to roll those back into solo to make sure that when you see these units, they're doing exactly the same thing. So our goal really was sort of a defensive move to prevent bugs from occurring, but our goal will always be to try to make, if you see a unit in solo, it plays very similar to, or hopefully exactly the same as, the unit does in multi.
I don't know. I'm not seeing any robotic cats in multiplayer. Why did that? The Predator is what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah,
why did that not make it over?
New units in solo that were never in multi, and that's always going to be the case for this game and for the games that we come. Because we know that we can handle 20 units plus in solo, but if you had that many units in multi, then you would be in a position where it would be very difficult to scout. You'd have no idea what the enemy was going to do. There'd be too many choices, and a lot of the units would be very similar to one another. So, for instance, the Hellion and the Firebat, those are fairly similar units. In the solo play campaign, you get to choose which one you want to use. That's the one you upgrade. That's the one you're going to use. In multi, that would be unacceptable for us. It'd be too much confusion, too much conflict, so we're not okay with it. So for solo, the gloves are kind of off. Like, we can do a lot of stuff that in multi, we simply would not allow ourselves to get away with.
So it's pretty much just a matter of making tough choices, cutting. You got to cut at some point.
Right, you've got to cut. So we're not comfortable. We don't want to have 20 units. We're going to end up cutting it down to 12 to 14 units per race in multi, and that seemed too restrictive for solo. So we kind of let solo run free, do what it wants to do, be an awesome game by itself, and let the multiplayer game focus on what it needs to be great at, which is a really great competitive experience.
Cool. So you guys are kind of bridging the gap gap between campaign and multiplayer with a pretty sadistic set of challenge maps. Can you kind of tell us where that came from and what it's supposed to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Our challenge mode is really there for players to be able to sort of understand what they need to do to play this game more competitively. Or if they wanted to be better at beating the AI, they can learn what are the sort of core skills to a competitive gameplay experience from these challenge maps. So we have hotkey challenges. We have counter challenges that teaches you what the counters are for the various races, for the various units. We have, challenges that teach you how to use a lot of the spellcasters, which maybe you don't get to learn as much in the solo campaign experience. Like, how do I be really effective with a combination of sentries and high Templars? We have a challenge that will teach you how to use those units effectively, which will hopefully you can take those skills then to an online battle, or you can take those skills to a battle against the AI and really sort of use those skills to sort of overcome your enemies. It's not going to make you a great player, but it'll show you what you need to learn to become a great player.
All right, so I get one more question. So how's that next game coming?
Well, we're not even started on that yet at this point. We're just desperate to get this one out, and we're just, all hands on deck, everything we can do to get this game to the highest quality possible and get it into the consumer's hands as quickly as we possibly can.
Very cool. All right, well, I'll let you get back to it. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.